Hello guys, my name is Director Dan. I'm a professional photographer based in Nairobi, Kenya, and in today's tutorial we're going to talk about frequency separation, and I'll be uploading more videos on photography. I'll be advising you guys on what to do in photography business and so on. So many contents I'm about to drop them in my YouTube channel. So just subscribe if you have not subscribed to my channel. Subscribe to my channel now, and hit the notification bell so that whenever I'm uploading a content, you'll be notified by YouTube. So basically, in today's tutorial, just as I've said, I will be teaching you guys how I personally do my retouching, and how I do my frequency separation. So first of all, I usually remove the blemishes. Blemishes are these tiny pimples and spots that are found on models and so on. So basically that's what I start with. I start with removing blemishes, and by removing blemishes you can use some tools. You can use spot healing brush, and patch tool. So basically, spot healing brush, I basically use it to remove those very tiny blemishes, like this one. Let me just increase that brush size, like this one, this one, because when you use spot healing brush on those big blemishes, there is a certain way it will create some patches on the skin of the model. So basically that's what I do. I usually use spot healing brush to remove small and tiny blemishes. Healing brush works the same as clone stamp. So healing brush, this is how it works. I usually use healing brush to remove these big blemishes, and to increase on your brush, you can use the rectangular box bracket on your keyboard. There's a bracket which is rectangular in shape, so the left one increases and the right one decreases. And for you to use these brushes, make sure your caps lock is locked. If is off, if your caps lock is on, you won't be able to see if the brush is increasing or decreasing, or you can't get that accurate brush size which you want. So basically, if you want to remove this plus, you make sure your caps lock is off that way. So this how spot healing brush, I'm usually confused between healing brush and spot healing. So this how healing brush works. You hit Alt on your keyboard, and then you left click, then you come to that blemish, and you left click again. You should always click to a place where is near that blemish. So if I want to remove this blemish, I'll just come here and hold on Alt key on the keyboard, and then left click to select that part, and then come to that blemish and left click again, you see it have removed. Yeah. So that's basically what I do. And for the patch tool, it's also essential, and it also works that way. So for patch tool, you usually come and select. I hold the left key on the keyboard or on the mouse, and then select that part that way, then move. I still left click, then move to a place where I want to that is so clear, yeah, to replace that blemish that way. That's how patch tool works. But mostly I usually use healing brush, yeah, mostly because I usually find patch tool a bit slow. I usually do my work so slow with the patch tool. I usually use patch tool on specific parts. So before you remove any blemish, let me just undo all. Sorry for that. Before you remove all blemish, you should create another layer. You should duplicate this layer. By duplicating the background layer, this is the background layer, you hit Control or Command J on your keyboard. For Windows, for those who are using Windows, you hit Control J. You hold Control and then click J. And for those who are using a Mac, you hit Command J to create another layer. So this layer is, and then you select that layer, and this layer this is the one that you'll be using to remove those blemishes. So let's just start by removing those blemishes. I usually hold alt on the keyboard and left click, then hit on that blemish. So this is how I start. Before I even start my frequency separation, this is how I usually do. I clear all the blemishes first, so that whenever I start doing my retouching, I won't have that hard time to remove blemishes on after retouching. So as you can see, if you keep on practicing, it will be an easy thing. So for now, if you're starting off, it will a bit be slow for you, but if you're used to it, you'll be doing it so fast. As you can see, we're trying to remove those blemishes. Yeah, I think so far we have removed those blemishes. Sorry for the distraction of noise. I think it's an aeroplane. Yeah, I usually stay around the airport, so that's why. Sorry for the noise. Yeah, as you can see, you can turn off this eye here to see what you've done. This is the before, this the after, this the before, after. So after doing that, I usually merge this layer, and if you want to merge those layers, I usually hit Control on the keyboard and then select both layers, and then right click and then come here and merge those layers to make it one. So if I want to start to do frequency separation, I usually duplicate these layers into two by hitting Control or Command J on your keyboard twice to have two layers, or you can just come to this layer, background layer, and hold on the left key and drag it to to this plus icon. That way you will have, sorry for that, you'll have control, you'll have created two layers. So I usually name this one color, then this one texture, and hit enter. So after selecting this color layer, we'll just turn off this icon of the texture while selecting this color layer, then come here to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, then take this slider to 0, then zoom out a bit, then look for a place where you see a lot of textures. For my view, this place has a lot of texture. Then move this cursor, this slide, to a place where you're not seeing any texture, like to a place where you start losing those textures. That's where you stop. So we'll just move a little bit. Still moving. They're taken above board. For this image, I think I'll just work with 7. 7 looks good for me, and as you can see, all textures have been hidden. There's no more textures seen. Then hit OK. After hitting OK, you turn on this eye icon for texture, then you select that texture layer, then you come to image, apply. So here, after you've selected apply image, this is another area you should be so accurate. So for these figures, you should first know your photo, if it's a 16-bit image or a 8-bit image. For us, I'll show you the settings for 16-bit image and 8-bit image. Let's start with the 8-bit image. So you'll select the layer color, then come to the blending here, then select subtract, then scale is 1, not 1, the scale is 2, offset is 128. These are the figures that you should cram. If at all your image is 16-bit, is 8-bit image, sorry. For 8-bit images, you should select to subtract and scale to offset 128. If you have a place, you can just write these figures. Now let's put the figures for 16-bit, which it happens to be our photo. The layer will just be color, then the blending option will be add, then we add. If we add, our scale should be 2, offset 0. Then remember to check this invert box. Preserve transparency should be unchecked, mask unchecked, preview checked, so others will remain the same. Then hit OK. After hitting OK, come to the blending option here and look for linear light. Here is our linear light, so our photo will look like there's nothing which has happened. Now after doing that, you group these two layers by holding Control on your keyboard, or Control or Command on your Mac, then selecting that way and hit Control G to group. Control G to group. We'll just rename this group to, sorry for that. We'll rename this group to frequency separation. then you hit enter, then you open the group, you come to this layer, this layer texture. Now this is where magic happens. For me, I usually use mixer brush tool and lasso tool for my skin retouching. So for this mixer brush, for selecting mixer brush, you right click, then you look for mixer brush. There it is. For mixer brush, for if you're using for the first time, you'll find this this part selected, both of them selected. But if you want to do the skin retouching, you uncheck this one and then come here to this arrow and then clean brush. The reason as to why you're selecting this one is because sorry, is because if you select this one, the brush, it will clean the brush after each stroke. Like if you brush, it cleans, brush, it cleans, if you brush, it cleans. That's why you select this tool. Then your weight should also be 9. I usually use weight of 9 or sometimes 10. So you load 75, mix 90, flow 20. Yeah, after doing that, I usually create a black and white layer on top of this texture layer, just to help me to separate the highlights, midtones and the shadows, because we'll be brushing highlights alone, midtones alone, and then shadows alone. So for me, I usually recommend most of the people or anyone who is learning this technique of mine to use black and white. But if you are so good at distinguishing between highlights, shadows and the midtones, then it's okay. There's no need of creating black and white. But for me, I'll just create black and white. I'll just come here and then look for black and white. Here it is, and then crush the reds until where those highlights, midtones and the shadows are popping. So for this, I'll just leave it at negative 52, where I just see the highlights, shadows, the midtones. Yeah, then you just close. Then you select this color layer, then you start brushing. Remember, brush highlights alone, midtones alone, shadows alone. Don't mix them like this. Your photo will look so flat and so unrealistic. So let's start with, I'll just increase my brush a bit with the bracket on my keyboard, that way. Just brush the highlights alone, that way. We have some midtones here. Midtones actually is that part where the shadows and the highlights meets. So that point is where there's midtone. Then you brush this way, the shadows alone, shadows alone. So let's just see the before and after. You turn off the black and white layer and then see the before, after, before, after, before, after. We can see images starting to pop. Then you turn on. Basically, this process, if you get used to it, it can only take less than 10 minutes depending on your speed. Yeah, depending on your speed. So if you want to be perfect on this technique, frequency separation, you should be practicing at least once in a day or twice. or as much as you can, so that you can be perfect and you'll be retouching so fast, so fast. Yeah, you should be doing this to all your portraits, whether a full portrait or half portrait, or uh, or headshots. This is the technique you should be doing to all your photos, so that they pop up nicely. Yeah, I think you've done. Oh, the nose. This is the part I usually like to talk about, because this is where most of the photographers mess up. Yeah, so I'll talk about this. I'll talk about this when we are using Lasso tool. Yeah, this part of the nose. This is where most of the photographers usually mess up. So now we are going to use, now after using the mixer brush, you can see the before and after, before and after, before and after. The image has really transformed. It's really transformed, and it's now looking nice, but we haven't yet finished. Yeah, so after finishing that, you can come on and delete this black and white layer, because you no longer need it. Then come and select the lasso tool. So this is how the lasso tool works. You hold on the left key and select only the skin, but not the hair. That way. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you. After you've selected the lasso tool, you should check on your feather. So your feather should be between 18 to 25. But for my portraits and headshots, I usually like using 22. 22 work best for me, so that's the figure that I use. After you've put it on this figure, you select the eye selected. Then after doing that, you come to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Now here you should pay attention, because this is where magics also happen. After selecting and coming to Gaussian blur, this figure of 7.1 is the initial figure we used when we are on this layer at first. When you selected, you remember when you selected this color, then we went to that Gaussian blur, and we selected the 7.1 to eradicate those textures. I think you remember that point. So this 7.1, if you want to get real skin tones and realistic skin tones, this is what I do. You take this 7.1 and multiply by 3, which is 7 by 23 is 21. So I'll just type in 21. That way you're done. Then you hit OK. As you can see, our skin really looks so nice. Then you just have to select this way, right click, then hit Gaussian blur. Select this way, right click, Gaussian blur. Select this way, Gaussian blur. Gaussian blur. Right click, hit Gaussian blur. So basically, this lasso tool method I usually use it because it maintains the skin textures, and then uh, uh, it's it I also use it because there's some parts where we using Mr. Brush, we didn't reach out very well, so this lasso tool actually enhances those parts. So basically that's why I usually use lasso tool to my portraits. Now, I told you I will talk about the nose when we come to this lasso tool. So this is what I usually do. Most photographers I see, they usually select this nose area and just hit Gaussian blur. As you can see, this nose doesn't look realistic. It looks so fake, and we have missed and we have lost all the highlights here, and those highlights are so nice and beautiful. So to do that, to avoid to lose these highlights, you just have to select this part alone, hit the Gaussian blur that way, select this part alone, hit Gaussian blur, then select the highlights alone, then hit the Gaussian blur. But after hitting the Gaussian blur, you right click again, come to fade Gaussian blur and reduce on the opacity. I think to around 48. Let's go with the 45. Works best for us. So as you can see, those highlights have popped up very well. Yeah, so basically this is what I do with my frequency separation, and after this I usually do dodge and burning, but for this tutorial I won't do dodge and burning because this videos basically for frequency separation. On my next YouTube tutorial I'll talk about dodging and burning, and I also didn't want this tutorial to be so long and boring. So as you can see, this before, this after, before, after. Yeah, so I think the only part we have left out, we come to this texture layer and come to clone stamp. The reason as why you're cloning, we want to clone these small blemishes that were left out. You see the importance of removing blemishes before doing frequency separation. Yeah, you reduce on your workload after frequency separation. So basically I told you this clone stamp really works the same as as healing brush. Yeah, so basically that's how it is. Just zoom in, then hit remove reduce on the brush, then hit Alt on the keyboard and left click to select that part, then just brush and to remove those small blemishes that were left out. Yeah, so basically this is what I do, and I keep on telling you guys, this thing you should keep on practicing each and every time to perfect. Yeah, you should be doing it each and every time to perfect. At least in a day you should be doing one or twice just to perfect your art, and you would sharpen your skills. Yeah, I think from that point we are good to go. Like, the image is really nice and well well retouched. You can see the before after. So I think for just to add on this, I'll just quickly run through how I do my eye and teeth whitening, but I'll do another video on how I specifically do teeth and eye whitening. And for this tutorial, just rush out so that at least this image pops out very well. So to create a stamp visible layer for these two layers, for what we have done so far, you just hit shift control alt E once. That way it has created a screenshot of what we have done so far. Or on the Mac, or those who are using Mac, you can just hit shift command alt E, then it creates this visible stamp layer, and then duplicate that layer by hitting control or command J on your keyboard, and then go to filter, then come to camera raw. Then come to adjustment brush, select the adjustment brush. I told you I'll just rush so fast. It will take temperature to around 21. Don't cram these figures. That's another problem with some of the photographers. They usually cram figures, and it's not good, because these figures won't apply to your photo. So you should just get the concept. So just take this temperature towards the blue, just to kill the yellows a bit. And then I've seen the image has some green, they've either some green parts of it, and then you just have to take the tint to around positive 58. Then we want our eyes to pop. We'll increase on the highlights to around positive 4 and the whites to around positive 3. Then since our eyes and teeth have some colors, we'll just have to reduce on the saturation, just to remove those colors. After doing that, just zoom in by holding alt on the keyboard, that way, or just using a control plus or minus. Then just reduce on the brush, then start painting out. Then you should never ever paint this part. You should never ever paint this part, because if your image will look so unrealistic. You will paint this part this way, this part here. Sorry for that. Come to this another eye, do the same. That way. Then hold the space bar, then move the image to the teeth, then just zoom and paint each teeth separately. As you can see, it really pops out very well. The image is actually pleasing, and if you can see it, the teeth are actually popping out very well. Don't add this effect to the gums. It will look so unrealistic, so unrealistic. Yeah, so basically this is what I do for my teeth and eye whitening. So after doing that, you just hit okay. Yeah, and you can see it has really transformed the image. And if at all the effect is too high, you can reduce on the opacity. Yeah, but for this image, I'll just leave it at 100 because of the tutorial. Yeah, so basically this is how I do my frequency separation. And if at all these images and if at all this tutorial has helped you, or you have gained something from this tutorial, don't forget to like this video there on YouTube, and please share it with anyone out here who is willing to learn frequency separation. And thank you guys for your time. And if you haven't subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll be posting each and every week. I'll be posting a video on different aspects of editing in photography, and I will be sharing different different knowledge on editing in photography. So my name is Director Dan, and thank you for watching this tutorial. And